I had always believed in trust, respect, and the unspoken boundaries that sustain a marriage. My wife, Sana, and I had been married for nearly a decade. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but I had always felt confident that mutual respect and honesty formed the foundation of our relationship. That confidence was about to be tested in a way I had never imagined. It started one evening when we were attending a party hosted by some colleagues of hers. Sana had a reputation for being charming and social, but that night, her behavior began crossing lines. She laughed a little too long at jokes from other men, lingered in conversation with subtle touches, and frequently glanced in my direction. A mixture of mischief and challenge in her eyes. I noticed it immediately. My stomach twisted with a mixture of pride, discomfort, and a rising sense of anger. I felt protective, not just of myself, but of the integrity of our marriage. After a while, I leaned closer to her and whispered a teasing warning, but she laughed and turned it into a challenge. "If you can't handle me flirting, maybe you should stay home next time," she said with a sly smile. As if testing the limits of my composure, her words struck me like a spark in dry grass. Flirting wasn't innocent. It was a deliberate act to provoke a reaction. And her challenge was clear. Would I allow myself to be disrespected, or would I respond with the assertiveness and confidence she seemed to demand? I smiled back, calm and deliberate, my mind calculating the path forward. This wasn't about confrontation or humiliation. It was about demonstrating who I was, my values, and the boundaries I would never compromise. I decided to show her what a real man does when faced with challenge and provocation: respond with composure, clarity, and quiet dominance rather than anger or drama. Over the next hour, I adjusted my approach. I engaged in conversation with others at the party, but I remained attentive, protective, and composed. I observed her interactions, noting every subtle act of flirtation, and chose not to react impulsively. Instead, I allowed my presence, confidence, and calm authority to speak for me. Sana noticed the change immediately. Her mischievous glances became less frequent, replaced by curiosity and a dawning respect. She realized that the challenge she had issued, whether as a test, a game, or an act of provocation, would not elicit the drama or anger she might have expected. Instead, it met with measured control, awareness, and the quiet strength that comes from self-respect and confidence. Later, when we left the party, she tried to address it casually. "You didn't seem bothered at all," she said, a mix of surprise and intrigue in her voice. I turned to her, calm but firm. "Flirting doesn't define us. Respect does. I know who I am, and I know our boundaries. Challenge me with mischief or tests, but never underestimate the strength of trust and integrity in our marriage." Her reaction was subtle but unmistakable. For the first time that evening, I saw a flicker of realization in her eyes, that her attempt to provoke me had failed, and that boundaries, self-respect, and composure were more powerful than any act of flirtation or challenge. Experience reinforced important lessons about trust, relationships, and personal integrity. First, provocation, whether playful or deliberate, is a test of boundaries and composure. Reacting impulsively with anger or insecurity only feeds the challenge. Second, responding with calm authority, respect for oneself, and clarity about limits demonstrates strength, dignity, and control. Third, mutual respect, not power games, is the foundation of lasting partnerships. In the days following the party, Sana's behavior shifted. She became more aware of her actions, more respectful of boundaries, and more appreciative of the quiet strength I had demonstrated. Our conversations about respect, trust, and fidelity deepened, and the flirtation that had once seemed a challenge became a catalyst for understanding and reaffirming our marriage. Realize that betrayal is not always obvious or overt. Sometimes it manifests as testing, provocation, or subtle challenges to trust. The way one responds calmly, confidently, and decisively defines the outcome. In this case, my response preserved our relationship, reinforced boundaries, and demonstrated that integrity and self-respect are far stronger than insecurity, fear, or overreaction. Looking back, I see that night as a pivotal moment in our marriage. It revealed character, tested boundaries, and demanded clarity. My actions were not about punishment or dominance. They were about demonstrating the values, respect, and composure that sustain a partnership. By showing her what a real man does in the face of provocation, I preserved trust, reinforced love, and strengthened the bond between us. The memory of that evening, the subtle tension, the challenge, and the calm response remains vivid. It is a reminder that respect, composure, and self-awareness are far more powerful than drama, provocation, or petty tests. Betrayal, in its many forms, can be met with dignity and authority. And in doing so, one can reclaim control, protect the relationship, and reinforce the integrity of commitment. Ultimately, that night was not just about flirtation or provocation. It was about clarity, boundaries, and demonstrating strength through calm, measured action. My response set a precedent, showed my values, and reinforced the foundation of our marriage. Betrayal, subtle or overt, requires response, but the manner of that response defines character, integrity, and the power to protect what truly matters.